Only 6 games on tonight's slate for MLB DFS, but it's still a pretty fun slate. Like sometimes on these shorter slates, we can have some issues with there not being a lot of pitchers to pick from. Maybe we're short on stacks. And to an extent, the stacking situation for today is a little bit tough. You know, there aren't like 15 teams I want to go at, probably because there are only 12 teams on the slate. But there aren't a ton of teams there. But from a pitching perspective, you've got good options. And I don't mean just like you've got a number of options. You've got one rock star guy in Joe Musgrove. You got other options elsewhere. So I feel pretty good about this slate for today. What we're going to do today is, as always, take your questions live on air, get you set for tonight's slate, and make sure you are ready to win some money over on FanDuel. Welcome on in to the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to answer your questions live for the next 25 minutes to get you set for Monday's main slate in MLB DFS. No matter what is on your mind, get your questions in for today. We can talk pitchers. If you want to ask why I like Musgrove or why I don't like someone else, feel free to hit me up about that. We can talk about pitchers. We can talk about hitters. We can talk stacks. We can talk overall MLB DFS process. I know, especially early on in the year, there can still be some questions about, you know, why are we doing this? How do you find this number, et cetera, et cetera. So feel free, any questions you may have, put them in the YouTube chat or wherever else you may be watching, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook as well. We can take questions from no matter where you're watching to get you set for tonight's slate. But to me, I think the headliner of tonight is Joe Musgrove taking on the Brewers, and the Brewers are a big part of this. The Brewers still not hitting the ball too well so far this year, down to an 85 WRC plus versus righties. Some injuries have definitely taken a hit here as well. 26% strikeout rate. Joe Musgrove, whole lot of green on the sheet for today. 2.04 skill interactive ERA. This is in his 3 starts this year with the Padres. 36% strikeout rate. Dude's a rock star. I would say this is a great night for single entry because people can try to get cute. I think you just go Joe Musgrove personally. So I think the Musgrove single entry star, cash game guy you want to use across the board. And for tournaments, I want to be overweight there for sure. Jared, who will be the top 3 home run hitters of tonight? So number 1 is Jared Walsh. Number 2 is also Jared Walsh. Number 3, potentially Shohei Ohtani, but then number 4 is also Jared Walsh for today. So if you want like a home run challenge pick, Jared, I think that Jared Walsh is phenomenal. I actually have the Angels leaderboard pulled up over here. And this is since the start of last year. So for Walsh, because he hasn't played as much, it's a smaller sample, 106 plate appearances, but 41% hard hit rate, a 41% fly ball rate, 12% strikeout rate. A number that stabilizes pretty quickly that I don't talk about as much is isolated slugging. Isolated slugging actually does stabilize quickly, and this number for Walsh is 452. That's disgusting. So I think he's a tremendous pick. So honestly, Jared, you could go, and your name is Jared too. Wow, what great symmetry there. I would say you can go with any of the Angels people. You can go Trout, you can go Ohtani, you can go Walsh. I think that if you're trying to be different, because if people decide, okay, I want to pick Angels batter A, they're going to go Trout and Ohtani. They should. They're both very good. But I would say that if you want to be a little bit different, Jared Walsh is your guy. So I think that he's up there for sure. Definitely one of the top guys for me. I also like Brandon Belt. He's been a guy who has really good batted ball data against righties. The concern with him is that he could leave the game early, but for a home run challenge type thing, I'm not as worried about that. So give me Walsh, Ohtani, Belt as my 3 home run hitters for tonight for you, Jared. Michael, I know you like San Francisco as your number 2 stack. Do you feel they will be unpopular? So one thing we can go to, Michael, we've talked about a couple of times here, in trying to judge popularity for stacks is looking at things like an implied total, because for a lot of people, that's where their research begins, looking at whichever teams have the highest implied totals. We see the Angels are number 1, Dodgers 2, Giants 3. So the Giants are 3rd on this list. They're behind high-profile teams like the Angels and like the Dodgers. I would say the Giants will probably be pretty popular from a value perspective, people going towards them, trying to give themselves more salary flexibility to get to Mookie Betts. Again, Trout and Ohtani as well. So I think they'll be decently popular. So if your angle is I want to go to San Francisco to get them at lower roster rates, that's going to be tough. I don't think you'll be getting that, but I do think that they are a fine play in a vacuum, and I do want to use them because they allow me so much flexibility elsewhere in my lineup. That's kind of the thinking there. So Probably not going to be, like a lower roster rate option for tonight, but still one I do like a lot despite that. Devontae, I know nothing about DFS baseball. Give me a lineup. I can't give you a lineup. That's like a code of ethics type thing. It's good for you to ask. I appreciate the hustle, but I think that I can give you the structure for a lineup. How about that? So what you want to do, Devontae, if you don't know anything about MLB DFS, pick your pitcher first. I think the pitcher for tonight is Joe Musgrove, but I think that Brandon Woodruff is a pretty good play. Dylan Bundy's a solid option. I like Danny Duffy more than the numbers he would indicate. I've heard a lot about Dustin May today. I'm not as into him as I am Woodruff, Musgrove, Bundy, or Danny Duffy, but it makes sense. People are into him. I can definitely understand that for sure. So pick your pitcher first, then pick 2 teams you want to stack. I think for me, that winds up being the Angels and the Giants. However, just pick 2 teams and get as many players in that team as you can. On FanDuel, you're capped at 4 per team unless you have one as your pitcher. So I would say you get Musgrove, pick your 4 favorite Giants, pick your 4 favorite Angels, hit submit, log out, win some money, and see what happens. Hopefully that helps, Devontae. But you do want to start with your pitcher, then pick 2 offenses you want to stack and go from there. Mateo, I love the Angels tonight in 81 degrees. I do too. I have a lower temperature here. I have 74 degrees in Los Angeles for tonight, but hey, it's still the highest temperature on the slate. We're going to take it every time. The reason that we like the Angels was Kohei Arihara is not a high strikeout pitcher, 12% strikeout rate for him. Through his first 3 starts in the big leagues, he has a low skill interactive ERA relative to that strikeout rate, but a lot of this is because his walk rate is so low. That is a good thing for skill interactive ERA, but it's also good for us for DFS because it means more balls in play. And right now, he's allowing a barrel 14.6% of the time. That is a massive number. So a lot of balls in play, a lot of hard contact on those balls in play. Perfect formula for stacking. So Mateo and I, in lockstep with this one for today. Mateo, we've been on the same page a lot this year. Makes me feel good. So hopefully we're doing well over there for sure. Alvin, I've seen people liking Washington and Tampa Bay. Do you like any of them? Washington is facing Jack Flaherty. The reason I am lower on Washington, despite the fact that Flaherty has not really been himself recently, is that he doesn't allow a lot of balls in play. 30% strikeout rate. This is his past 7 starts, a 30% strikeout rate, and 11% walk rate. That means he's allowing a ball in play less than 60% of the time. That's a low number. For reference here, like Chase Anderson is going to be allowing one about 72%. Oh, man, I'm so bad at math right now. 72% or so of the time for Chase Anderson allowing a ball in play. And again, Flaherty's below 60%. That's a big gap. So I'm lower on Washington as a result of Jack Flaherty just not allowing a lot of balls in play. I know he's not right now, but that's a turnoff for me. Tampa Bay is facing Danny Duffy. I actually like Danny Duffy as a pitcher for tonight. I did stack against Duffy last week, so that may seem very stupid to be suddenly in on Duffy as a pitcher, but the reason I like him is that the Rays strike out a lot, a 27% strikeout rate versus lefties. This is since the start of last year. Duffy, good velocity so far this year. He's getting rid of his sinker effectively, and if you are a regular listener, I hate sinkers, so that's a great thing for me too. So Duffy is not someone I have like gobs and gobs of confidence in, but good matchup, probably not someone who will be on a bunch of rosters, so that's what leads me towards him. I can see stacking against them, Alvin. I think that I can understand why people are there. I just won't be there personally because I think that Duffy actually has a pretty defensible case to be a pitcher for tonight, more so than a stack. If you look at the skill interactive ERAs on my chart, it is like the 3rd highest number here. So that's why I can't say no to stacking the Rays. But I think that there's a lot in Duffy that makes them pretty risky just because I think they're going to strike out quite a bit in this game. Cody, I missed the pitchers. Okay, so we have Joe Musgrove. I think that he's number 1. I have Brandon Woodruff number 2. I've gone back and forth on this like 37 times since this morning between Woodruff and Dylan Bundy as my number 2 pitcher. Bundy, really good matchup as from a strikeout rate perspective. The Rangers are bad. I'm going to change my mind. I'll go with Bundy as my number 2. Let's just change it on the fly. Bundy 2, Woodruff 3. I am going to go with Danny Duffy 4, and Dustin May would be 5. Those are the pitchers for tonight. I think I'm lower on May than others are just because I mean, I think that he's going to get strikeouts. I just think that the other guys have better spots, specifically Musgrove, and they're close enough in salary where I think that that's where I'm at there. Jesus, Jim, love all you do. Thank you. St. Louis, both pitcher and hitters. What do you think? So the pitcher for St. Louis, Jack Flaherty. So I mentioned before that I'm not stacking against him. I'm also not going to use him as a pitcher just because the barrel rate and the walk rate are so high. So I'm not going to use Flaherty as a pitcher. I can understand it just because like the strikeout numbers are there. So I get it. I'm not going to use it personally. Hitters for them facing Joe Ross. So Ross does not get a lot of strikeouts. That's a good thing for the St. Louis hitters. However, also doesn't let up a lot of hard contact. This is just 2 starts for Joe Ross. It's a very small sample. But even before this year, which is, I guess, 2019, because he missed all of 2020, didn't let up much hard contact, got some ground balls. I don't think Joe Ross really profiles as a guy I want to stack against all that much. And also St. Louis's offense is pretty bad. I don't know. I think I'm lower on them than a lot of people are. So I'm not personally interested in using Flaherty as a pitcher or stacking the Cardinals. So that's where I'm at for tonight. I can get it because Ross is not like an ace by any means, so I can understand it. But just because I think he profiles as someone who will limit hard contact and is facing a team that I'm not super high on offensively, that's what pushes me away personally. Devontae, I know nothing about baseball. Just want to try DFS for fun. And also ask, what are some lower salary players on FanDuel to help round out lineups? I love the energy, Devontae. I love it. It's great. Welcome. So let's talk about some lower salary players. And let's check out the Angels, see if their lineup is out yet, because they have been pretty interesting the past couple of days. I actually do not know if Jose Rojas is going to play today. However, if he does, I think he's pretty fun. He's been hitting, I think, like 6th or 7th the past couple of days that he has been in there. We can pull this up by going to the game log over on Fangraphs. This is because Anthony Rendon is out. Yeah, so the past 3 games he has started, he has hit 6th, 6th, and 7th. I think the 2 games he didn't start in that time were both versus lefties. He's a lefty, so this makes sense. But when he does play, hitting 6th or 7th, we can take that because he is the minimum salary, so you cannot get any lower salary than that. And honestly, doesn't have like the worst numbers in the minors. In 2019, so a long time ago, but 31 dingers, a 283 isolated slugging. I believe he had a really high fly ball rate that year as well. 49% fly ball rate for him in the minors. That's pretty good. Obviously, it's a small sample this year. It's 19 plate appearances. That's why I don't really care too much that he hasn't done a whole lot, but 8.3% barrel rate. That's probably 1 barrel, if I had to guess, across the course of this year. Yeah, 1 barrel, 3 hard hit balls. So I honestly think that Rojas profiles pretty well, assuming that he winds up batting 6th or 7th again. They haven't projected to bat 9th. I would take the under on that personally. So if you're looking for a low salary dude who might do something, I kind of don't hate it. The Dodgers also do give us some pretty good options from a lower salaried perspective. We got AJ Pollock, who is $2,200. Will Smith is $29. We have Chris Taylor, who is $29 as well. There are actually a lot of good lower salaried guys on that Dodgers team who fit pretty well. They're facing Justice Sheffield. I think Sheffield's pretty decent as a pitcher, but for this slate specifically, I'm okay stacking against him, in part because it's the Dodgers, in part because there aren't like a ton of great stacking options. So I would say if you're looking for some value here, these guys, Will Smith, Chris Taylor, AJ Pollock, depending on who plays, they do get the DH today. So that means that Will Smith pretty much guaranteed to play. So I would say Smith, Taylor, Pollock, good low salary plays, guys that want to turn to. And then also all of the Giants guys are options too. Let's pull up the Giants here. Apparently Devontae's a huge basketball guy. Devontae, I will teach you baseball if you teach me basketball. I am very bad at NBA DFS, so we'll do a little trade-off here. You teach me NBA DFS, I'll teach you baseball. We'll have a little give and take here. So the Giants are low salaried across the board. Evan Longoria is the highest salary guy at $3,100. They're facing Chase Anderson, lets up a lot of balls in play, a lot of hard contact. We want to use offenses facing this. So let's actually build this out here because we're here. And actually, Alvin just asked about the Giants too. So this actually matches up pretty well. I'm going to put in Joe Musgrove because he's the pitcher I want. We're going to go with Musgrove. We're not going to do a full lineup here, but we'll do a partial one just for funsies to show what the stacking situation looks like for this Giants team. Okay, so Belt's hitting 4th. I mentioned on the solo shot this morning, I want to start with the guys who I know are going to stay in for the entire game. That means Evan Longoria, he's batting third, $3,100. We'll take that. That means Mike Yastrzemski at $3,000. I might go with Brandon Crawford. He's batting seventh. That's lower than I was hoping he would be. I was hoping he'd be sixth once again. He is not there. So that does lower Crawford for me a bit. However, that means we can go with some other guys. I think that Belt, among the question marks on this Giants team, is the guy I feel best about. $2,300, gotten 5 plate appearances a couple of times. I think the odds that he leaves the game early for a pinch hitter or a defensive replacement are lower than what you get with Tommy La Stella, who is $2,200, or with Alex Dickerson, who is, I think, $23. Yeah. Actually, Austin Slater's batting sixth. Didn't really expect that. He's usually ninth against righties. I was planning on him being ninth, so I didn't actually look into it too much. The thing you can like about Austin Slater is that he does not tend to leave the game early for defensive replacements because he's a righty, hits lefties very well. Let's check out the numbers here for Slater versus righties. 26% hard hit rate, yuck. 36% strikeout rate, boo. Ooh. Okay, so I was considering going Slater because he's batting sixth. I'm less certain about that now. Let's pull up the numbers here and see if he's made some gains so far this year versus righties. It'll be a small sample because we're looking at a platoon split over the course of just one season. Not really what you want to do, but I think for Slater, maybe it's pertinent just because they had enough faith in him to move him up in the order. Maybe that's worth something. Okay, let's split the numbers up here versus righties for last year and this year. This year, a 48% strikeout rate versus righties. Okay, so I've seen enough. I'm going to go Brandon Crawford. The numbers for Crawford versus righties since the start of last year, a 37% hard hit rate, 37% fly ball rate, like both those, 243 ISO. So I'm annoyed that Crawford is batting seventh instead of sixth, but I still think that he is the number 4 batter on this team. Again, the reason I'm not on La Stella and Dickerson as much, I'm still okay with Dickerson, less so La Stella, is because they tend to leave the game pretty early, whether it be for a pinch hitter if a lefty comes on or for a defensive replacement. That's a big thing for me because if let's say they take out Dickerson in the 6th inning, that means I am missing out on a full 1/3 of the game. You're not going to lower his projection by 33% because you don't tend to get as many points in the later innings because you're facing relievers, tend to be more efficient than starters, but you're going to lower it 20%. If he's missing 33% of the game, you can lower that projection 20%. Once you do so, that's a tough sell. So he can still pay off for sure, definitely, but I think that you do need to lower your expectations of those guys. So I would say if you're looking for some value, but also guys who have good projectable power, Belt, Longoria, Crawford, Yastrzemski, pretty good options here on this Giants team. And Alvin, I think those would wind up being my favorite options within the Giants for right now. I could talk myself into some Dickerson. I'm a big believer in him just being a good baseball player. At some point, that does matter as well. I can't just, fully focus on the negatives. A 38% hard hit rate and a 41% fly ball rate versus righties, 259 ISO. He's a good baseball player, and that's worth a lot. Not that Tommy La Stella is not a good baseball player. Obviously, he's proven over an increasingly large sample that he can get the job done. I just think that the odds that Dickerson and Belt make it worth my while in those first 3 or 4 plate appearances are higher than La Stella. So I don't know, if I fill out enough lineups, I'll get to La Stella eventually, but I think that, I'm going to go to Dickerson before him, go to Belt before him, potentially even Slater as well, just because he's going to be in there for the full game. So I know I was talking down about Slater's rate stats versus righties. The bulk number matters too. So I think that Slater is still fine. I wind up lowering him because it's just not the best numbers versus righties. So hopefully that helps Devontae and Alvin. I know, Alvin, you're a big baseball guy, but for the ranking out the Giants, I'm very wary of La Stella and Dickerson specifically because I don't know how long they'll be in there. I do bump Slater up because he winds up batting 6th versus 7th, but not to the point where I'll take him over Crawford. I still think Crawford is the number 4 guy in here. Apparently Jesus needs help with basketball too. So Devontae, if you've got time, we'll just have you on the FanDuel YouTube page. You can take over my job and do basketball I'll do baseball. I think this is a good trade-off. We still have more time for more questions, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, no matter where you're watching. Get those questions in. We'll get you set for today. I mentioned that we talked about the Giants. I ran through some Dodgers who I like. We've not talked a lot about the Angels. I guess we did talk a little about Rojas and Walsh. Let's actually check out plug them in here and see how much damage we're doing with this Giants team if we decide to go with what I would consider to be the big four. And I think that to me, the big four on the Angels, obviously going to be Trout and Ohtani. Go them first. And then I include Walsh as being part of that. We're in some serious trouble here. We'll do that. So you got 2,400 left. I think that kind of does force us to use Rojas, assuming that he does wind up being in there. Again, I know that numbers this year are not ideal, but not super worried because it's a small sample. If we do that, we have $2,500 left for our remaining four spots. If you get A.J. Pollock in there, he's $2,200. That can help move the needle quite a bit. The Giants guys, Crawford is, I think, $2,600. You've got Dickerson at 23 if you want to go down there. I think personally you can make this work with Musgrove and all four of the big four on the Angels. And I guess Rojas doesn't really count as being part of the big four, but he's someone I want to use to make it easier to get to those guys. Let's say you're not going Musgrove. Let's go with Danny Duffy in here, just to see what the difference is from a salary perspective, because that could make it a lot easier to get to those three guys, but you don't need to go Rojas. So you got 28.40 left. We can go Justin Upton there. $3,000. Upton, the numbers versus righties are not – it's not as bad as Slater, but they were not ideal. I think that they're low enough where I'd rather probably go to Rojas, assuming he's not batting like ninth. I mean, even if he's ninth, I'm still going to use him, realistically. But it would lower the expectations if he's batting ninth versus batting potentially sixth or seventh. If you want to look at where you can see lineups from previous days, just click on Angels here over on Baseball Press, and you can see what they've done in different situations. So the two times they faced righties, Rojas batting seventh there, batting sixth there. You can also get it via roster resource over on FanGraphs. So scroll over to roster resource, click on the Angels in the AL West. You'll see this, and over on the right-hand side here of the lineup, you're going to see past lineups. So you can see here, okay, last time they faced a righty was on Wednesday. For that one, Rojas was batting seventh. He was batting sixth on Saturday. He had sixth on Monday as well. And before then, I believe Anthony Rendon would have been in there. Let's scroll down, see Rendon on the injured list. Oopsies, I must have passed him. Either way, I wouldn't worry too much that he was not in there previously because Rendon was there. Not anymore. So I think that Rojas, pretty interesting just because he does give me a lot of salary savings and makes it a lot easier to get to guys like Trout, like Ohtani, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go to Upton's. I saw a question from Nick, which we'll get to in a second here. The numbers for Upton versus righties, because I'm assuming he'll probably be batting fifth or so. If I could click it. There we go. 15th time is a charm. Okay, so against righties last year, he had a 145 ISO, 21% strikeout rate. That's not necessarily the best. A 37% hard hit rate, 43% fly ball rate. A lot of strikeouts so far this year. So Upton, I'd rather go down to Rojas depending on what I need elsewhere, just because the salary savings are great. I think that he projects him for some power in the big leagues, and Upton not going to blow you away against righties. Okay, Nick asked, how crazy would it be to roster Gausman to shore up salary for some bats? My concern with that is not around Kevin Gausman himself. I think Kevin Gausman, I almost said Kevin Costner. Kevin Gausman, a very good pitcher. I like him a lot. I like what the Giants have done overall, like developing toolsy, I don't know if that's the word to use, toolsy type pitchers over the past couple of years. Gausman, the prototype of that. However, I hate his matchup. I think it's very scary. 108 WRC plus for the Phillies versus righties. 23% strikeout rate. That's probably hypocritical given that I'm, saying I want to use Woodruff versus the Padres. But I don't think that Gausman is on the same level as Woodruff from a pitching perspective. So that means I have to care more about matchups than I would with Woodruff. And when I factor in the matchup with the fact that Gausman doesn't quite measure up as well as the other guys, that's where I get to my concern. So if you're looking for salary savers, again, I wind up gravitating towards Danny Duffy. $8,300 is actually a little bit lower salaried than Gausman for today. Duffy hasn't done a whole lot in his first two starts, but those first two starts were against Cleveland and the Angels. Both those teams, lower strikeout teams, ranked 2nd and 9th in strikeout rate versus lefties, whereas the Rays are 28th. So I think if you want a lower salaried guy, Danny Duffy will be that pitcher. Also helps that it's 49 degrees in Kansas City for today, and that's what you want for pitchers. You want low temperatures. It's blowing in. The wind is blowing in from right field at 14 miles per hour. So I think Duffy, although he actually doesn't look great on this chart, I think he's a very good option for today. That's where I'm coming from there. I think that Duffy, my favorite value play of today. Is McKinstry very likely to play, crushing lefties along with Turner and Pollock? Let's get all three in, but end up with less Angels in the outfield. Go Chris Taylor instead. I think that he's second base eligible on FanDuel, and he's also $2,900. So that gives you the ability to go with those three Angels if you want. You do the overlap with Taylor and Rojas if he does wind up playing, but I just think Taylor's a good hitter. He had a 450-foot home run this weekend. Obviously, that's the only reason you would possibly consider him is if he had a long home run. But you go Taylor there, I think that works out pretty well. So I think that Taylor would be my preference over McKinstry for today just because I feel better about him playing, and I also think that the power is pretty legit. Seems like they have a lot of faith in him too. So I think that Taylor's the guy you want to turn to there. What do you think about Royals bats today? Soler is cheap. Concern for me is two concerns. First one is it's very cold. Second one is that Josh Fleming is a big ground ball pitcher. He's going to let up a lot of balls in play. He doesn't get strikeouts, doesn't walk a lot of guys, but he gets a lot of ground balls looking at his minor league profile. So I would say I'm very wary of the Royals, mostly because of the weather, but also because Fleming gets a lot of ground balls. So I'm not as into the Royals. I like the Royals overall. I think they're fun, especially Soler, really fun. Not super there for today because of Fleming's work with ground balls. Devontae is heading back to work. If you want to talk basketball, hit me up. Okay, there's Devontae's Twitter handle. Go follow Devontae. Ask him for his basketball takes, and I think that we can get some help there. And again, just synergy. I love it, Devontae. So hopefully this can help you out, win some money for baseball for tonight. That is all the time that we have for today. We are back again tomorrow, though. Actually, a full hour-long conversation tomorrow because Brandon Gadula is talking golf. There is, I think it's the Zurich Classic this week. There's no DFS, like traditional DFS this week, but there is betting. Brandon will talk about that. I think we're going to talk some NFL draft, too, tomorrow around like 3:45 or so. I'll hop on and talk some draft with him. I can get my hideous quarterback takes out there because why not? Why not make everything public? We'll talk about that tomorrow. 3:30 is when Brandon starts. I'll hop on around 3:45 or so. We'll talk baseball our regular time, 4 p.m. Maybe we'll get Devontae on at 4:30 to talk some basketball as well. If you have additional questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. I want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Also give a big thank you to Joy Affleck, our video producer for today. Thank you to Joy for running the video side of things here today. We appreciate it as always. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your baseball lineups for today. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.